The wave that enters us collides, generates constructive interference, we assimilate the wave carries information, this information enters our unconscious, is stored and provokes a reaction in us, a resonance. So, we enter into phase, the wave enters into phase, the two waves with the information received, and this makes us behave in a certain way. This information entered us, literally, atomically, at the deepest level. And once the information has entered, it never leaves, it has become part of the person. It's complicated, I would have to talk a lot about this, and then it goes beyond what we are talking about. There are 2 DVDs about this. Since most people don't know that this exists, most people don't know what to say, they talk a lot of nonsense, as they say, there is no result whatsoever in terms of relationships. Because you don't know what you're going to say. Now imagine a situation like this. You meet someone for the first time and exchange a few words about the weather and, by chance, let's say you're outdoors, on a beach, you say that you like going to the beach because there are a lot of butterflies. That's it. You don't say anything else, you just say that, end the conversation, and the two of you say goodbye. A year later you meet the person again, one of you has gone back home, ended a marriage, it's over, you're free, you go back to the same place to hang out again, and you meet the person who had mentioned the butterfly a year before, and then you start having an affair or a relationship with that person. It took a year to get this result. During that year, neither of you spoke to the other because you didn't know where they lived, they probably didn't even know each other's names, they only met by chance, once, exchanged a few words and left. A butterfly is an archetype of transformation. When you say this to someone, you have given them a command, a stimulus for transformation. It's a state of the art, it's not something trivial, you have to think, you have to reason. It's hard work. I talk about this in a workshop, and a person has a boyfriend who is kind of stuck, he doesn't want to study, he doesn't want to work, he doesn't want to do anything else with his life. She, without telling me anything, goes there and thinks, I'm going to tell him about butterflies. She calls, he answers, and she says, look, I had a dream today, you don't know, I dreamed about a bunch of butterflies. Okay, interesting. They talk about other things and hang up the phone. A week or 2 later he breaks up with her. He comes and says, now I'm going to study, take a test, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and we break up. When you introduce the archetype, you need to know exactly who you are doing it with, what the story is, the context of the thing, and what story you are putting the butterfly into. The butterfly is an archetype, but you need to put it into a context to get the result you want. The other one ended her marriage because of what she said about the butterfly, and the other one lost her boyfriend because she said it at the wrong time. She couldn't have said that she had a dream, she had to put it into a story that the butterfly would provoke another reaction, that he would get all excited and provoke all the transformations to be with her. This can't be thrown in just like that, just pick the archetype and say it. Audience, but it's hard to know how to put it into the story, because she doesn't know. Audience, isn't it easier for her to tell him, I want you to change, to study, to work, to earn money, to evolve, but to stay with her? Professor Hélio, no. It's not. We can even do a survey, how many women, who are here, have already said that, and what results did they get? Audience, it doesn't give anything. Professor Hélio, just look at the numbers, look at the percentage of women and men in this room and you can tell. That doesn't work. Besides, the first rule of sales, no direct sales works. All sales have to be indirect. Indirect. Only indirect sales work. Buy this blender, buy this television, vote for this candidate. Do you do that? You don't. It's an imposition, the person is violating their free will, with all those things. Now, if they put in commercials and statements about the wonders of the product, or on a computer, next to an half-naked women, in fact, all products are shown with half-naked women, due to Maslow's scale of needs, then you buy, you vote, you do everything. You do whatever you want with the media, with marketing and advertising. With archetypes you can sell anything. The same thing is happening in relationships. The eagle is the most powerful archetype that exists, pure dopamine all the time, and dopamine is something that people rarely have in an ideal amount. Hardly, otherwise the world wouldn't be what it is, because dopamine is action, courage, strength, it's doing, it's very high self-esteem. Where do you find that? In half a dozen people, the top of the pyramid. Very few people have dopamine at an optimal level. But the result of dopamine is tremendous, the power that this substance has in us is immense. When I explain about the eagle and give many warnings about how to use it and how not to use it, to avoid greater damage, sometimes it is no use because people underestimate what was said, the size of the power that this archetype has. The person arrives, buys a photo, a 60 centimeters poster of an eagle or a statuette, puts it on the wall next to the TV in the living room and the husband watches it, 3.5 hours a night and at least 6 hours on the weekend. A week later he leaves. I have had 2 cases reported to me, in exactly 7 days he leaves. So, when the person asks, can I put it up? The first question is, how is your relationship or marriage? Is everything okay? Are you sure? Are you really sure, really? If you are, then put it up and see the result. In 7 days he leaves because biochemistry is pure mathematics, there is no way to get away from it. The person's peripheral parallel vision is capturing the eagle and is producing dopamine non-stop. While you see the eagle, you create, while you listen to it, you create, that's why in all empires, in all powers, guess what their symbol is? The eagle. Because to be an empire, you need the people to have very high self-esteem, the will to fight, to struggle, etc., otherwise you won't succeed. The question is whether the person wants the transformation for themselves. Of course, put the archetype that you want, that gives the specific result. But, if all people see that or any person sees a photo, a poster of an eagle, a statue in a house, all people will grow, all will change, all will evolve, all will move. Therefore, it doesn't depend on knowing about it, having studied, the level of education, it doesn't depend on anything. Remember that the archetype is the project of the universe. When the universe was created, the archetypes were created, all of this is a plan, it wasn't by chance. Why does the eagle produce dopamine? Why? Forget the why. This was programmed, this was planned, this was created, so it is like that and that's it. The symbolism that a person uses is the result that they have in life, you can check it at home. Of course, there are other factors, there are many variables at work, but it is obvious that the emotional aspect is very important. If you have, for example, several cows in the kitchen, a cow sitting, a cow standing, a cow in every way, like you can find in furniture stores these days, it's a bit complicated. Because what is the emanation of this archetype for you? What do you perceive and what will be the result in your life? If you take the symbolism is not whether it is made of gold, silver, or another material, which is what it is. Go to the favela, go into their living room and take a look at what they have in terms of knickknacks, pictures, etc. Go to a middle-class house, to Murumbai, to the Jardine neighborhood and take a look at what they have or pick up a magazine and look at the rooms, people's houses, take a look at the decor. What do they have? That way, you know who is who, by looking at the decor you know who is who, because your emotions are the product of the stimulus you are receiving. That is why symbolism is something very important and is also part of the so-called occult. Because of this. A duck is obvious, a duck is food, it's the idiot. When there's a cartoon with a bunch of rats leaving some city hall. Need I say anything else? No, the symbol itself says it. You can't associate a rat with anything positive, because it's horrible, it's one of the worst there is. A cow is terrible because it's a meat animal, it drags a plow, etc. Audience, and a turtle? I have a beautiful turtle. Professor Hélio, turtle. If your life is the life of a turtle, what will happen to you? Because you're going to incorporate the symbol you use, whether you like it or not. If it weren't like that, companies wouldn't spend fortunes on logos, would they? No one would spend fortunes on a brand like, I can't name names, but you have brands worth $10 billion, $50 billion. And the factory? All the company's factories? No. It's just the symbol, the brand alone is worth $10 billion. Why? Because that brand, that logo provokes a certain reaction in the consumer, and that thing placed on the edge of a soccer field during the World Cup guarantees an audience of 3 billion people. So, what do you put on the edge of a soccer field? Only archetypes. No one is going to put something written, made in any way, because it is throwing money away and, besides, it costs a lot. So, millions of dollars are taken to put it next to the goal, in a strategic spot, because the result that it has on people's minds is guaranteed. You can't underestimate a subject like that. Before the Second World War, a psychology study was conducted in Germany and the psychologists thought the following: they were sure, if we put such a stimulus in a movie session, as soon as it ends, the audience will break the whole theater, vandalize the theater. They already knew this, but they did it anyway, just to see the result. They put the stimulus in, the movie ended and they destroyed the entire theater. Did you notice? Imagine the mass manipulation and what you can do if you know which archetype to use, of course, if you have the means to do it, if you have television, radio, newspapers, billboards, cinemas, the press. If you have the means to use it, what are you not capable of doing? Anything, because the result is automatic, it enters your subconscious and you react. The strongest is the one at the top of the food chain. Audience, normally, birds are a good archetype, because they represent freedom, things like that. Professor Hélio, yes, you can have a flock of ducklings flying. When you start working at a car manufacturer, you receive a manual of procedures within the company, making hand signals, a thick manual, with instructions on what you can do there, who to call, extensions and everything else. As soon as you open the first page, there is a flock of ducks flying in formation. Ducks flying, what does that mean? In here, you are a duck. A duck. You are not an eagle, there are no eagles here, there are only ducks here. Well, then the company does not need to say anything, with one page it has already framed you and said, look, can you go from here to here? Don't even dare. The symbol is directly related to the result we want. If we use a weak symbol, the result will be weak. Tiger is action, it is the only one below the eagle. Below the eagle there are felines, except for the lion, because the lion does not hunt, the lioness is the one who hunts. You need to carefully evaluate the archetype you are using. Imagine that in a conversation with your future boyfriend you start talking about all this. If you talk about the tiger, his dopamine will rise to very high levels, and what reaction do you want? You need him to stay quiet for at least 3, 6, 9, 10 months, a year, calm so that you can tell all the stories and get all the information out of him. Do you think someone is going to give you a resume in an hour, in 2 days, in a month? First you have to talk about all the generalities so that the person lowers their shield a little and thinks that they can talk to you. But, let's go back a little, someone who understands the subject, in the first 15-minute conversation, in half an hour or an hour already starts the next conversation. This is a huge mistake to make. Hi, what are you doing here? Look at the sun, look at the rain, bye. Do you know when this will happen again? Never. Unless they work at the same company, unless they are neighbors, but other than that, the chance is zero. In the first conversation, you need to bring up a topic, a story that will lead to the next meeting, that necessarily has to happen, that there is an urgent and pressing need to talk to the other person. The person will leave and will not rest until they come back to talk to you. Guess what, you are in the universe, which has 3.5 billion on your side, and another 3.5 billion on the other side. So we have 20 million people in Greater Sao Paulo, there are 10 million on each side. If you leave it open, do you know what chance you have, with millions more looking for someone? Practically zero. The duck is the victim, the weak one, it's a terrible archetype. Inside the company, what will become of you? Because what do you think the president and the board of directors are? In the director's office, there are only horses, pay attention, where you work. No director, no manager dares to put more than horses on the wall of his office. Who has an eagle? The president. He's the only one who has an eagle archetype in his office, the rest, directors who have company planes at their disposal have horses. I've seen this, do you understand? And I've talked to people who lost an excellent job they had, overnight, but then the person understood, after a while, they were fired without any cause. And then, when he came to one of those talks, he understood the reason. 6 months before, this one actually lasted a long time, but he wasn't the one who made it, that's why it lasted 6 months. Before that he had won an eagle statue and put it on his desk. 6 months later he lost his job. People who come to this lecture that talks about archetypes lost their jobs the next day. The next day the teacher went to work and put an eagle under the glass of her desk. The principal came by, looked and said, "Come here," went to the office and fired her. The other one tried to be smarter, put the picture of the eagle in her personal drawer, on her desk, in her personal belongings drawer. Guess what? The boss went there, opened the drawer, looked at the eagle and fired her. The other one was a civil servant, she was sent far away, she was under the CLT and was fired. I had already warned the other two, don't take a brooch, don't take a photo, don't take anything with an eagle into the company you work for, because it will definitely cause problems. The people don't know, but the ruling class knows, your boss knows what the symbol means. So, when on Monday, your son goes for an interview for a job in the Human Resources Department, there are 3 or 4 left and the person asks the candidates, "What animal would you be?" The son of one of my students, his mother came home at 10 o'clock at night, all happy and overjoyed and said, "Oh, you don't know what I heard, the eagle is the best there is." He arrived in the morning, the boy went for the interview, they asked him what animal he would be, eagle, and the one next to him, ant. Guess which one got hired? Professor Hélio. The client had an eagle on his water distributor. What happened? He started losing customers. We live in a country where the symbol is a parrot, Zay Carioca. A scoundrel, does nothing, very smart, gets everyone behind. Buy any of his magazines at the newsstand and you'll see. To this day, the archetype of Zay Carioca is this one. This was brought to Brazil in 1942 and it wasn't any Brazilian who created it. But, Brazilians accepted this symbolism. And they use it a lot. Macaw, parrot and their related symbols. What do you think could happen to someone who uses parrots as symbols? The whole country is like this. Where is their dopamine? There isn't. With parrots there is no dopamine. If our friend puts an eagle symbol, guess what a parrot feels when he sees an eagle? Experiments have been done, of taking a flock of ducks in a small pen, or a goose or something like that, and placing a wooden eagle, a statue of an eagle near them. As soon as they saw the statue, they panicked. The statue, they didn't even see the original flying. The statue. Now, take a look at Antonio Damasio, who is an exceptional neurologist. He says the following in his book, "The ducks, just seeing the shape of the eagle's wings, are scared to death, they run away." A little question, he is a super famous neurologist of this current paradigm. How does this statement fit into current science, this current one? How does it fit? The shape of the eagle's wing is an archetype, when the duck sees this, it runs away. How did this statement go unnoticed, right? How are you going to fix this statement in this book? Of course, who came up with this hair in the world? No one, ever. These things go unnoticed. But how can a neurologist say something like that if he is in the current paradigm? Where does Jung fit into this? How do you take Jung and put it in the universities? What parts of him, right? Oh sure, psychological types are the only thing that can be swallowed, assimilated, from Jung. Apart from that, there are 21 more volumes. That's right. So, you see that reality imposes itself, that's why, in a moment of carelessness, he is writing, he states a fact. Now, how does the duck know that that is an archetype? How does it know that that shape is a danger to it? Because the archetype pre-exists everything. The shape of the eagle exists before the universe was created. That's why a duckling that has just hatched from the egg looks up and is astonished. What is the experience that the duck has? What is the trauma that the duck has with eagles? falcons and hawks, etc. to die of fear as soon as he saw the archetypal shape. He has never seen it, he was just born, he is there grazing happily, he has never seen an eagle in his life, but just seeing the shape makes him run. Did you notice? Now we are talking about supposedly unconscious ducks, animals. If a duck runs from an archetype, imagine how much we can be manipulated using symbolism. That is why a logo is worth a fortune. Humans are like this. The guy lives in a condominium, there are several buildings there is a girl he is interested in, so he starts talking to her and invites her to go eat a pastry at the fair, have a coffee, for 4 years and nothing happens. He doesn't get anywhere until one day, knowing it or not, it doesn't matter if he knows the subject or not, but he got it right empirically, he got it right, he called at night and said, "I'm going on a trip." Period. Traveling is very important, there are things that you can't use before their time, traveling is very important. She answers, "Wait a minute while I have tea with you." Then she goes to have tea at his house, opens the door, goes in and he doesn't even lock the door. This is the testimony I got, he didn't even have time to close the door. Now, imagine 4 years in a row, him trying and nothing. He takes it and says, "Trip, that's it," he got what he wanted, and nothing else happened, that was it. But as soon as he said, "Trip," she had an irresistible urge to go to the apartment and, if you ask, "But didn't you know what was going to happen?" No. That's when the rational part comes in, rationalizing everything, but the unconscious that was commanded, that received the stimulus, is leading the person to behave like that. One word. Look, there's something, a story, that is deadly, but you shouldn't use it before it's time. And as if I didn't say anything, there are people who will leave here and use it. If you use this story that I'm going to tell, the person won't let you go, no way, it will take months. A student who did this just to test what Hélio said, then spent 4 months trying to get rid of the girl. You've been warned. The story goes like this, you're on the subway and there's a guy looking at a girl, the girl looking at the guy, and vice versa. You get to the station, the door opens, she gets up and leaves. Period. Change the subject, talk about movies, talk about anything, you have to insert the story in the middle of another conversation. So, you have a bunch of banal subjects, then you insert this story and go back to banality, that's it. He heard the conversation or she. It's irresistible. You have to be very careful when using this. But, what the story is conveying, the opportunity. The story is saying that the opportunity sometimes passes by. The opportunity passed in front of you and you didn't take it, the girl looked, he looked, but the guy didn't do anything, he opened the subway door, she left and that's it. And on the subway it's very complicated. You think you'll meet again, if you go to the same station, at the same time, in the same carriage, if you think the other person was so impressed with you that they did that. Only if you had had a conversation, set up the future meeting, then yes. You would force this type of reaction, otherwise you'll never see them again. So, the opportunity sometimes passes by our door and we ignore it. This creates in your subconscious a desperation, literally, not to miss the opportunity. Now, look, it's a little story that no one knew until now, but after this DVD, countless people will know. There will come a time when there's no point in telling this story, because as soon as you start talking, the person will say, "Well, I already know," and she went down the door. Audience, you'll have to come up with another story. Professor Hélio, and of course, you'll have to find another story. The one who speaks first is the one who will lead the game, that's the one who leads the game. So, when there are 15 seconds, 15 minutes, the one who starts speaking first and starts introducing the archetypes and stories has a tremendous advantage, because if the other person speaks first and you listen, if you have no alternative, you've already listened and taken the advantage. You need to know the subject very well to return to the story, cancel it out, tie it up or make a counterattack, because you'll have to take control of the relationship. That's right, in the first few minutes of conversation things have already taken this turn. That's why you need to understand this subject, because otherwise, what do you do if you don't know? You meet someone in 2 or 3 minutes and say, "You don't know what I saw on the subway the other day, there was a boy and a girl and..." It's over. Someone can do that to you in 2, 3, 5 minutes of conversation. Or, "I had a dream," etc. The context doesn't matter, the story matters. Once you tell them that, it's over in 3 minutes, 30 seconds. You see, the more you know, the more defense you have, so when someone starts with a subject and goes in a direction that you feel is that, you need to change the subject and change the story. Audience, can't you just ignore it? Professor Hélio, there's no point in ignoring it. See, it's the neocortex that knows that it's like this. I'm going to rationally ignore what the other person is saying, but what about your subconscious? And your unconscious? They've already captured, they've already fabricated everything you want, whether you like it or not. There's no alternative. What you can't do is let the conversation continue. For example, if someone one day starts telling you this little story and you think you should drop the subject, or if you think you want to cut it short, say, "I know, that case ended in divorce 5 years later." Do you understand? You've already killed the story the other person is telling, see? It's true, there was a continuation of this story and after 3 years there was a divorce, that's it, you killed it. But this is in real time, everyone already knows this story, they already know what they have to say to cancel it.